Yeah, the TryPod app, shit, years in the making. They're raising the stakes straight, bringing home the bacon. It's free to take, mate, so why you waiting? Grab a...
Yeah, g'day everyone and welcome back to the TryPod with Winnie and Clarkey here for week 2 of the Pacific Championships and also other international action. Mate, it was a great start to the postseason last week. How'd you see it? And more importantly, how are you, my man?
I'm good, thanks, mate. Most importantly for me is how do the bets perform, and I'm happy. Gave out Pacific Championships best bet. It won as easily as you could like. I had Australia under 16.5 points in the first half. Australia only had 6 points in the whole first half, and that was the length of the field intercept try as well. So no sweat there to win the best bet. And the mixed matchup also won really comfortably. Australia-Tonga had a higher total than Fiji-PNG, but we took the latter game to be higher scoring. And with only 18 points in the Aussie game on Friday night, we had $2.50 odds, which we won very well there. I didn't have like a story of the week, mate, but a hard luck story for you. You gave out 2 same-game multis. You said the one you originally liked, which of course cashed thanks to that Australia's late try. And then the other one you give out is Australia 13 plus and Cam Murray to score. And he did come close a couple of times.
Mate, that is punting for you. As soon as you change your mind, the punting gods will give you whatever you change your mind from, mate. Just quickly for myself, this is how I saw it, Winnie. I thought we got exactly what we expected from Tonga. And I think that the spine in these emerging nations in the Pacific is going to be what continues to let them down. It's just not enough experience there, and they were held back. For Australia, was not impressed offensively. Very clunky in attack, but very strong defensively, particularly on their own line. And then across the fence to the Fiji and Papua New Guinea game. Expected a fair bit more from Fiji. I thought the scoreline would have been a bit closer in that game, but they were very poor at home. Meanwhile, Papua New Guinea, they just took advantage of a poor Fiji side and did what they needed to. Anything further from yourself, mate, before we duck into the big one?
Well, I think it's still a positive that my best bet one mixed matchup, and you gave out a multi at 650 odds, which was Tonga cover first half, Australia cover full game. And although you didn't call it an official play and we can't put it in our record, I'm sure you still benefited some people with that line of thinking. For those who didn't watch it, Tonga-Australia was a far closer game than 18-0. As I said, it's only 6-0 at halftime. Kalamatangi goes that close to grounding a try that would have made it 14-6 late. And at that point, Tonga covers. And instead, Australia covers the line with a try in the final minute. As for Fiji-PNG, Fiji was, I've got to be honest, awful. Fiji were horrific. That line went all the way from 5.5 to 8.5, and the game was in Suva. PNG, on the other hand, were relentless. PNG won by 12 points, and Australia won by 18. But I tell you now, PNG was far more dominant than Australia were. Now we get Australia against New Zealand, and that's what we're going to spend most of the time tonight breaking down. And I do have a best bet for this one.
Awesome, mate. Let's jump straight into the main event because this is the main event of the weekend, the match that everyone is most looking forward to. It's Sunday afternoon. We're at Christchurch in New Zealand. The Kiwis are hosting the Kangaroos, and that line is set at minus 10.5 against Australia, who have no changes. They have named the exact same 17. Meanwhile, for New Zealand, this is the first squad we've seen from them this year, but the key points for me was their spine. It's Chance Nickel-Klukstar and Sean Johnson in the halves, Phoenix Crossland at 9, and Keanu Kinney at number 1, mate. Here we go. Break it down for us, Winnie. How do you see this one playing out?
Well, first of all, it's the ultimate revenge game because the last time these sides met, which was about 12 months ago, Australia was handed their biggest defeat in 118 years of rugby league. It was 30-0 to New Zealand. Australia was a 12.5-point favourite from memory. I actually feel that this New Zealand side is not even as strong as Tonga, so therefore it won't be as close as last week. And I know Australia won by 18 points, but I feel like it was a little closer than that. My main reason is we have to understand that as good as New Zealand are, and they're in a pretty golden era at the moment, here are some of the names of guys that were there last year that dealt out that historic victory that will be sorely missed on Sunday. Jerome Hughes, the hottest player in the comp. Dylan Brown to partner him in the halves. As you said, instead it's going to be CNK. Moses Leota, right up there with the fish in terms of best props in the world. Mulatalo would be handy on a wing. Joey Manu was there last time. We understand why he's not there now. Britton Nickera was one of the form back rowers in the comp. He is injured. And this New Zealand side that pumped the Aussies a year ago had Big Nelson, Leo Thompson off the bench just to show the muscle. And I can't recall if Marshall King played a year ago. He was probably injured. Brandon Smith might have been injured too, but those guys are out again this time. So that's a lot of quality. Yes, you can argue with me and say Australia's got quality players unavailable too, but the depth is far greater for the Aussies in terms of covering up those positions and the luxury they've got. So I do see Australia as the far superior side and with everything to play for.
I'm going to break this down real simple, man. I just think this one's personal for the Aussies, just based on what happened last year. That's an embarrassing defeat. And I do think on paper, when you break this one down, they present stronger in almost every single area. Now, the reason why I won't use that as my sole reason for tipping Australia is you could have made the same argument in their last meeting, and that it was obviously 30-0 towards the Kiwis. Now, the Kiwis have won their last 7 games at home, and they actually have won their last 3 in a row over Australia in New Zealand. So they are building a nice resume there in their home country. But this is where I feel the Kiwis will be let down. I look at that Australian side last week, particularly in the spine. We have a new spine playing together, and there is always some teething issues. We saw it from the Aussies guys. We can't deny they look clunky in that first half. Now, let's say the Kiwis are able to overcome these teething issues of having someone like CNK in the 6 who's not a ball player, or Sean Johnson, who is not at 100% health-wise. I just think they're up against an Aussie side that has enough power across the park to remain on the front foot. You know, even if this spine does click into gear in the second half, I still don't see that as enough to overcome this Australian side, particularly around the forward pack. I think that's where the Aussies are going to most make up for last time. Their forward pack was embarrassed last time. So when I break this one down, I actually do see Australia winning both of these halves, and I see a low-scoring contest. So I'll do what I did last week, Winnie. I'll give you 2 different scenarios here. If you want to play it this way, under 46.5 total match points and Australia to win both halves, that pays around $6.20 plus in most places. If you do want to play it on Top Sport, one that I've picked out is under 6.5 first half points for the Kiwis. That's $1.87. So what I'm banking on there, Winnie, is I'm allowing them to score once and potentially convert, but they couldn't score and then get a penalty goal or a field goal. And I just feel if the Aussies could hold that Tonga side to 0, I think they can hold a Kiwi side with some teething issues in the spine to 0 in the first half. What are your thoughts on my tips there?
I mean, a team under 6.5 first half, people think that's not many points, but I'll tell you now, teams that don't win usually don't score over 6 points in the first half. Like, more often than not, if a team loses a game, they actually will score under 6.5. So you'd be surprised how often that does hit. And I've got a best bet that I'm going to keep super simple as well. Like, Australia's defense was great. It was on song last week. And there was a point to prove against Tonga too, because I think Tonga had won the last official test between those nations. Australia's attack needs improvement, but you'll get that continuity from playing the same 17 this week. So I think Australia gets all that benefit. I don't think Australia's fatigued or anything. So I just think it's a perfect situation for Australia. What have they got going against them? Well, they do have to travel to New Zealand and play in, hostile territory. And I get that. And I get that New Zealand will play spirited for sure. But to me, this line is still a little light. So best bet is very simple. I'm going to lay the 11.5 with Australia. $1.95 on Dabble's the best price, but it's 11.5 everywhere.
And of course, for our new viewers or people that might be new, that 10.5 and 11.5 line aren't too different, are they? It's just it's a rare oddity that it would
because
fall.
It's very unlikely someone will win by 11. So yeah, some bookies may even be at 10.5, but for the extra 5 cents, I'll lay 11.5.
Yep, I like where your head's at there, mate. We've got 2 other tests we can break down as well. Saturday night, we're in Fiji again. This time they're hosting Cook Islands, and that line is, I believe, similar to last week. It's around 14.5 again against Fiji this time. And I'll kick yourself here, mate. I think for Fiji, they've got the benefit of remaining in their home country for a second week in a row now. And I just can't see them regressing further than what they did last week. I think they can only improve. They were really poor, man. Then when I look across to this Cook Islands lineup, I don't see enough threats throughout the lineup, but I don't see enough experience in key areas. Therefore, I do expect Fiji to come back and win this game. Now, Papua New Guinea have Cook Islands next round. I suspect they'll win that as well. So Fiji would need to win by a large margin here in order to give themselves any sort of chance here to make it to that final. So for that reason, I will take them at the line, mate. So Fiji at the line against Cook Islands for my prediction in this one, mate. How do you break it down?
Yeah, I think you said similar to last week, but last week the line got as high as 8.5. PNG are
okay.
seen as a stronger side than the Cook Islands. The Cook Islands have about 8 players in the team that you'd know that like have some NRL experience, but not really many, if any, that are current starting players. I don't know if are there any that you'd shout out of like current form NRL players in there?
I think with Kale Iro gone, man, that's really their key.
Iro was great. I really noticed him a year ago and tipped him a few times for a try this year, which helped out a couple of our pod same game multis, but he's out. To me, I really was so disappointed by how bad Fiji played last week, but surely they'll improve for the run together, and you just don't want to waste the opportunity of playing these games in Suva. A year ago, these games were all hosted in PNG, and I remember it was a quality game in Papua New Guinea a year ago when Fiji played the Cook Islands, and Fiji won that 22-18, but Fiji had to come from behind and score 3 late tries and kind of get out of jail in that one. But I do think that means Fiji won't underestimate Cook Islands. I'm not officially giving a best bet here, but I also lean to Fiji to have a big bounce back, because when you're getting these squads together in these rare matches, I do feel like the run under the belt is very beneficial. In a little way, PNG benefited from that with a few players getting the hit out against the Aussie PMs 13. Now it's Fiji that gets to play in consecutive weeks, and I would lay the line if I had to play the line there.
Yeah, and I think, just remaining in Fiji as well is another big factor for me. No travel just helps their preparation a lot there, mate. We've also got another international we can touch on quickly. Monday morning. Now, this is at 12:30 or 1:30 in the morning, depending on which state you're in at the moment. But we're in Wigan in England, and they are hosting Samoa. Now, that line is currently minus 10.5 against England, mate. And they are looking for some revenge when we talk about what happened at the World Cup last year in that semi-final. So when you look at this game, how do you break it down for us?
2 years ago it was, but you're right. They met twice at the World Cup. The opening game of the World Cup was England 66, destroying Samoa 6. And I think Samoa was a favourite in that game, or it was pretty close to a 50-50. Then they met again in the semi-final, and Samoa got great revenge, and it was a classic. And Samoa triumphed in Golden Point. It was a Stephen Crichton field goal, I believe, though he won't be there, sadly, for this one. It's hard for me to genuinely give you guys a good breakdown because I don't watch the Super League closely, so I don't have enough familiarity, I'd say, with the English players to really judge it. I watched a fair bit of Tonga against England last year during the tour. They played 3 matches. It was 3-0 England. The first 2 were really tight and could have gone either way, and then I think Tonga didn't have much left to give in the third, and it was a blowout to England. It is a great revenge spot for the Poms, who were considerable favourites in that World Cup semi. That denied England a trip to the final. And as I mentioned before, Crichton, not taking part in this Samoa team, and it's hard to quantify how valuable he is and how much he'll be missed. So I've got to lean to the home side here as well, because just like that World Cup game, Samoa did not play their best in their first game on foreign soil. Please tell me how you see this, Clarky, and if you know, or anybody watching us, is this game on TV anywhere? I looked around, I couldn't see it on the Fox League guide unless I missed it.
Yeah, I didn't see it on the Fox League guide there either on KO, so I'm not too sure. But either way, this is not a friendly time slot for us in the Australian, New Zealand region of the world at all, which is a real shame because I felt the Super League Grand Final was at a manageable time, and I was happy to wake up at 4 or 5, whatever it was for that. But these are just, 12:30 is not friendly for the Pacific, the whole oceanic region, which is a real shame there by the promoters in England. Look, I think when I break this game down, I do prefer England. There's more continuity in their side. Their season ended more recently. They're in their own country, and they are looking for revenge in the World Cup. And I think that's 4 strong enough factors here where I can say that they will win this. I expect England will win this game. I think they'll cover that line. I don't think they'll blow Samoa completely out of the water, but I could see like a scoreline of 14-20, somewhere within that region where they're comfortably ahead and never any real danger. But then I think we might see Samoa respond in that second test, and that's when they'll improve. And that's almost similar to how the World Cup worked last year as well. So I've got England, mate, and if I do have to say a line, I prefer their line as well. So that's our 3 games, mate. Do you have a mixed matchup for us this week?
I do, mate. And since we both favour Australia, Fiji, and England, then you're going to like my mixed matchup as well, which, as I said, we won last week at $2.50. It's been going for 3 years, and it's still, we've won more than 50% of these, and the average odds are $2.50. So it's a remarkable long-term record the mixed matchup has. And this week, I'm going Australia, Fiji, and England to outscore their opponents by 40 combined. So most likely all three of those teams will win, but they don't have to. If one of them puts on a mega score, then we don't even need that. But combined, outscore opponents by 40 plus. If you do add those three lines together, 11.5, 15.5, and 10.5, you're going to be at 36.5 points. So I'm just asking for 3 more points than that, which is why we get $2.30, max stake 200. You can have on toppy. Our code is TP Live.
Awesome, mate. That's a great mixed matchup, and shout out to Top Sport for coming on board as a partner in this postseason series that we're doing. That's all we've got time for today, guys. So from myself, thank you very much for being with us, and we will see you next week to break it all down and recap it all for you. Over to you, Winnie, for the final word.
Historic night. We were even live on TikTok. So shout out to those who watched us on TikTok tonight. We might be able to add that regularly. The only other point I wanted to make, England, Samoa, we know the squads, but I haven't actually seen the official lineups even listed yet. So it was that extra level, like difficulty to judge it. But I don't think we can go wrong backing the home side that kind of knows what they're going to do and how they want to play as opposed to the touring party. Let us know what you think, guys, as always, because I always try and get back to the people who comment on Facebook, YouTube. I guess the Instagram and TikTok videos kind of disappear live, but come and find us in those places. All this is available as a podcast. If you're just catching the end of this, go and find us on your favorite podcast player as well. Thanks to you, Clarky, mate, showing off the gun show with the Bucks jersey, and they got up today in the NBA, which has been awesome to have back, and we've got some bets standing on that. But this weekend, I hope everyone enjoys their international rugby league. Have a great weekend, guys. Lego.